Hey guys, I'm going to go over some ways that you can use intermittent fasting to improve your health. So what exactly is intermittent fasting? Well, basically it's restricting your eating window. And you might be wondering, why the heck would I want to restrict my eating window? I love eating. Well, there's actually a ton of benefits that you get when you actually restrict your eating window. And it's not just because you're cutting calories or anything like that. That's one of the reasons, but I'm going to go over a lot of them today. Now, how exactly is intermittent fasting done? Well, there's a lot of different ways to do it. One way, for example, is to set regular eating windows. So this is something that I do. So basically, I only eat between around 1 p.m. to 7 or 7:30 p.m. And the rest of the day, I am fasting, so I'm not eating anything. And also in that time frame, I'm only eating 2 meals and I'm not really snacking at all in between. And another thing people do is called alternate day fasting, where one day they eat everything like normal and the next day they don't eat anything, but they still drink water. There are different ways to do fasting. I'm not going to get into all of them in this video. The main point here is just that you're restricting your eating window. So the first benefit you get with intermittent fasting is you actually get more controlled insulin levels. So again, this has to do with controlling your eating window. So anytime you eat, your insulin is released in your body. So you have higher levels of insulin. And this is to help store those sugars and store them for later. But one problem a lot of people have is insulin resistance. So this is a major problem for pre-diabetics or people who are diabetic. And one of the reasons people get this insulin resistance is because they're not ever controlling their eating window. So for example, if someone is constantly eating throughout the day and they're constantly snacking throughout the day, their insulin is going to be high all day long. And they're never giving that insulin time to come down. Now, the cool thing about fasting is you're forcing your body to not eat, and then you're giving that insulin time to get back to normal levels. Because what happens is when your insulin is high for a long period of time, you can get this insulin resistance, where over time your body doesn't react as well to insulin, and your body needs more and more insulin to get the same effect. And eventually what can happen is your blood sugars will stay super high because your insulin isn't working as well. And this is what's known as type 2 diabetes. So this is one cool benefit of intermittent fasting. And if you are intermittent fasting specifically for this reason to regulate your insulin, I would recommend to not snack in between your meals. So for example, what I do is I eat just 2 meals a day and I don't snack at all in between them. So that way my insulin gets time to come back to normal. So another benefit you get from intermittent fasting is it can help you lose weight. So a lot of people who do intermittent fasting do end up losing weight. And it's pretty obvious. If you are restricting your eating window, you're probably restricting the amount of calories that you're eating. Because let's say you usually eat in a 12-hour eating window. So you start eating at noon and you stop eating at midnight. But now you restrict that. So you now start eating at 2 p.m. and you stop eating at 10 p.m. This is just a random example. Well, that's 4 less hours that you can be eating throughout the day. So chances are you're going to be cutting out a meal or cutting out some calories. Now, obviously, if you're scarfing down even more food in that smaller eating window to make up for that difference, then yeah, obviously you probably wouldn't get the same benefit. But for the majority of people, they will not do that, and then they will end up losing calories and end up losing weight. Now, another cool thing that studies are showing is intermittent fasting can also increase your human growth hormone. So growth hormone is not just there for muscle gain. It can also help you burn fat. So that's another way that it can help you lose weight. So the third thing that intermittent fasting is doing is it's going to help regulate your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm is basically your body's internal clock. And it's regulated by one hormone called melatonin. So basically what this hormone does is when you see darkness and you start getting tired towards the end of the day, your melatonin will go up and that will help you go to sleep. But there's a lot of different things that go into controlling our circadian rhythm. And one of them is timing of our meals. And there's studies that are actually showing that if you regulate timing of your meals to certain hours just in the daytime, that it's gonna help your sleep. And the reason is because it's regulating your circadian rhythm. Your body starts to realize that the daytime hours are for eating and the other hours are for sleeping. So for example, let's say that someone is eating all their meals starting at 8 in the morning and then their last meal is at midnight. And then they go to sleep right after that. Versus another person whose eating window is from 12 p.m. till 8 p.m., then they go to sleep around 11 p.m. Well, that person's giving a 3-hour buffer after their last meal to go to sleep. So if that person's keeping that same eating schedule every day, their circadian rhythm is going to be a lot more regulated because they're keeping everything more consistent and more during the daytime when they're eating. So another cool benefit you get from intermittent fasting is you get lower oxidative stress and you get less inflammation in your body. So both of these things are very terrible for your body. Oxidative stress is basically when you get these things called free radicals. And these free radicals are basically things that damage your cells. So these free radicals will go around attacking your cells, and when they attack your cells, that's what's called oxidative stress. Now, inflammation does the same thing, but in different ways. But inflammation is also terrible for your body, and both of these things can contribute to a lot of different chronic diseases and also make you age faster. So the cool thing about intermittent fasting is there's studies showing that it can increase your body's ability to fight off this oxidative stress, and it can also lower the inflammation in your body. Now, also with intermittent fasting is you can also improve your heart health. Now, a lot of the research on intermittent fasting and your heart is based on animal studies. But we know that intermittent fasting can help control your blood sugar levels, it can help lower your blood pressure, it can lower your LDL or your bad cholesterol, it can also lower your triglycerides, and all of these are risk factors for heart disease. Now, also with intermittent fasting is it increases your autophagy. So autophagy is basically like the cleanup duty in your body. So it's getting rid of all the cellular waste and etc. and cleaning your body up. So for example, if a cell has these broken down proteins that aren't really usable anymore, the removing of that cellular waste is what's called autophagy. And autophagy is really important. And if you have more autophagy, there's studies showing that it can prevent certain diseases, for example, cancer and Alzheimer's. And speaking of cancer, there's also studies on intermittent fasting and it preventing cancer. So again, this is based on animal studies, but when you look at these animal studies, you can see a lot of potential that we can use to improve the health of humans. So some animal studies are showing that intermittent fasting can actually prevent cancer, but also improve the side effects that people get from chemotherapy. So one study took these mice that were prone to different types of cancer, and they had them eat a diet that was basically mimicking fasting. And what they found is looking at these mice that not only did they have lower rates of cancer, but if they did get cancer, they would get it later in life. So again, if you look at more animal studies, you'll also see that intermittent fasting can improve your brain. So I know we talked about oxidative stress and inflammation, we talked about controlling blood sugar levels and insulin. All of these things alone will improve your brain in turn. But also some animal studies are showing that intermittent fasting can increase the growth of new nerve cells in the brain. And also there's studies showing that if you intermittent fast, it can increase something called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So you might be wondering, like, what the heck is that? Well, this BDNF is found to be lacking in a lot of people that have depression and other brain problems. So the last cool thing I want to talk about with intermittent fasting is it may actually increase your lifespan. So again, I'm going to base this off of animal studies. There's just not enough human data out there yet. So one study from 2017 actually studied mice that would fast every other day. And they found at the end of the study that their lifespan actually increased by about 13%. And also, if you look at more studies on mice that are doing intermittent fasting, you'll find that they tend to get diseases later and later in life versus mice that do not do intermittent fasting. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you liked that video, and if you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel below. I will see you in the next video.